Chapter 4. A New Friend. "Well, how do you like them?" said Marilla. Anne was standing in the gable room, looking at 3 new dresses spread out on the bed. Marilla had made them for her. One was brown gingham, one had black and white checks, and one was an ugly blue print. They were all made alike, with plain skirts and plain tight sleeves. Anne didn't say anything. "Oh, I can tell you don't like the dresses," Marilla said impatiently. "What is the matter with them? Why don't you like them? Aren't they neat and clean and new?" They're not pretty," said Anne. "Pretty?" Marilla said. "I didn't trouble myself about pretty, Anne. Pretty isn't important. Those dresses are good and sensible. They're all you'll get this summer. The brown one and the blue one are for school. The black and white one is for church and Sunday school. Be sure you keep them neat and clean." "I just wish one of them had puff sleeves," said Anne. "Puff sleeves are the fashion, you know, but thank you for making them." "Well, you'll have to do without puff sleeves. Puff sleeves are just a waste of perfectly good fabric. Just vanity. Hang the dresses up in your closet. You're going to Sunday school tomorrow." Marilla went downstairs. The next morning, Marilla had a sick headache and couldn't go to Sunday school with Anne. Anne went off by herself, wearing the black and white checkered dress. Her hat was just as plain as the dress. Anne would have liked ribbons and flowers on it. On the way to church, she found a roadside patch of buttercups and wild roses. She made a wreath for her hat and put it on. Then she skipped merrily down the road, holding her pink and yellow decorated head up proudly. The little girls on the porch at church stared as Anne walked up. Her hat looked funny with pink and yellow flowers wound around it. They had heard about Anne. People said she had a terrible temper. She talked to the trees and flowers like a crazy girl. The little girls whispered to each other. Nobody tried to make friends with her. Anne went in to her Sunday school dress. The teacher was very strict. Every other little girl in the class had puff sleeves. Anne was unhappy. She felt that life was not worth living without puff sleeves. Anne discarded her pretty wreath of flowers on the way home since it had faded. When Anne reached Green Gables, she told Marilla all about Sunday school. She told her about the teacher, the prayers, and the lovely birch trees outside the window. She also told about the other children. "There were 9 girls in my class, and they all had dresses with puffed sleeves. I tried to imagine my sleeves were puffed, but I couldn't. I could imagine they were puffed when I was alone in my bedroom, but it was awfully hard there with the other girls who had really, truly puffs." "You shouldn't have been thinking about your sleeves in Sunday school," Marilla scolded. "You should have been thinking about the lesson." The one thing Anne forgot to tell Marilla was about putting the flowers on her hat. The next Friday, Marilla came home all upset from Mrs. Lynde's. "Anne, Mrs. Rachel says you went to church last Sunday with your hat rigged out with buttercups and wild roses. What on earth were you thinking?" "Oh, I know pink and yellow don't look good on me," began Anne. "Pink and yellow fiddlesticks. Putting flowers on your hat was ridiculous. Never mind the color. You look just plain silly," Mrs. Rachel said. "Everybody was looking at you. Of course people thought I sent you dressed like that." "I'm so sorry," said Anne, starting to cry. "I didn't think you'd mind. Lots of the other girls had artificial flowers on their hats. Some of them had little bouquets of artificial flowers on their dresses. The roses and buttercups were so sweet. They made my hat look pretty." "Now, Anne, I just want you to act like other little girls and get along with folks," Marilla said. "Don't cry any more. I've got some good news for you. I'm going up to see Mrs. Barry this afternoon. I want to borrow a skirt pattern from her. If you like, you can come with me and meet Diana." "Oh, Marilla, I'm frightened. What if she doesn't like me? It would be the most tragical disappointment of my life." "Now, don't get into a fluster," said Marilla. "Diana will like you well enough. It's her mother you've got to worry about. If she has heard about your outburst to Mrs. Lynde and going to church with buttercups on your hat, I don't know what she'll think. You must be polite and well-behaved. If she doesn't like you, it won't matter how much Diana does." They went over to the Barrys' farm, Orchard Slope. Mrs. Barry answered the door. She introduced Anne to Diana. Diana was sitting on the sofa, reading a book. She was a very pretty little girl with black hair and rosy cheeks and a merry smile. Mrs. Barry sent the girls outside to play in the garden. The Barry garden was a wilderness of flowers. If Anne had not been so worried about Diana liking her, she would have loved looking at all those flowers. But now Anne could only think about whether Diana would want to be her friend. "Oh, Diana," asked Anne, "do you think you can like me a little, enough to be my dear friend?" Diana laughed. Diana always laughed. "Why, I guess so. I'm glad you've come to live at Green Gables. It will be jolly to have somebody to play with." Will you promise to be my friend forever and ever? Anne asked her. Well, I don't mind doing that, agreed Diana. Hold hands, said Anne. I'll go first. I promise to be faithful to my dear friend Diana Barry, forever. Now you say it and put my name in. Diana repeated the promise. Then she said, I believe I'm going to like you real well. Oh, Marilla, Anne said later, I'm the happiest girl on Prince Edward Island. Diana and I are going to build a playhouse tomorrow. She's going to lend me a book to read and teach me a new song. She even knows a place where lilies grow. Well, all I hope is that you won't talk Diana to death, said Marilla. Matthew made Anne's day even more perfect. He came home from the store and handed her a small package. I heard you say you liked chocolate, so I got you some, he said. Oh, Matthew, said Anne eagerly. Thank you. Can I give Diana half of them? They'll taste even better if I share them. I will say this for the child, said Marilla when Anne had gone to her room. She isn't stingy. It's only been 3 weeks since she came, and I'm already getting fond of her. Now don't you rub it in, Matthew.